Hi everyone, this is Maite Mendez with another interview with the intention of spreading the voice of great masters of the spiritual field. In this case, we have a very, very special guest. I feel very honored to be today with Mark Whitwell, which among other things, he's the teacher and founder of the Heart of Yoga, and also a student from Desikachar and Krisnamachyaria. Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for making this happen.
Good to see you. Thank you for making this happen. No, it's me that must thank you. And we all thank you who are listening.
Yeah, I'm very thrilled about this interview and by its content. For those people that don't know who Krishnamacharya is and Desikachar, Krishnamacharya is one of the big fathers of modern yoga, but I would love you to tell us more about all of this. Tell us a little bit how was your yoga path or your path into yoga, and how did it happen that you encounter Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, Mark?
Okay, well, I'd like to start by saying I'm allergic to the word master. We throw it around, yoga master. Like a master of this, a master of that. And the word implies, of course, mastery. It implies some kind of perfection, you know, as if everybody else is not perfected. And there is a problem in this language, you see, the yoga master, and then somebody who comes, they're not yet a master. But what I would like to say is that life itself, the cosmos, you know, life on earth has brought each person into being and has mastered each person. Each person is already the perfection that is life, that is reality itself. So this sort of cultural imposition on the human species of there being a perfect person implies that everybody else is not perfect, see? And there is the problem of humanity. And it's as much in yoga as any other field. You know, in fact, it started this sort of religious proposition of the perfect person, began the religious presumptions that the whole of our society is based upon. The cultures of this world, civilization itself, is held in place by, you know, the duplication of these religious points of view, that you are not yet perfected, that God is other, or enlightenment is in the future. You're not there yet, you see. And this presumption is held in place by the language, and even our legal and financial systems hold that in place. And the duplication of that, you know, we are not yet perfect. And it takes a little moment of investigation, and, you know, like a sincere inquiry from each person to look into it. You know, my language is, you are the power of the cosmos. You are the power of the cosmos. What could make a human body that breathes and lives and reproduces? You know, that extraordinary intelligence that is life, that extraordinary beauty that is life, is already our condition, see? And this master business is it's a scam. It's only a power mechanism that by which we, you know, we don't even know our own reality, the human species. We don't know our reality.
And as a student from Mark, I have to say that in his classes, he definitely shares that while practicing asana practice. And this is what I love and how inspired I am by this constant reminder of our perfect nature just by being.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Some investigation, especially in the good company of somebody who cares about you, you know, a friend, That's what we say. The teacher is no more than a friend and no less than a friend. If we're to use that word master, let's not use it, but whoever is sharing yoga, transmitting yoga, is a friend, you know. No more than that, no less than a friend, equal friend, you know. And that is simply a sharing, and a sharing of these yogas that came from an ancient wisdom world before humanity developed its power structures of orthodoxy, you know, the male power structure and the presumed perfect master that created the civilization of the imperfected, trying to get perfected with whatever the random method is. So this yoga is adapted to each person as each person's participation in life as it actually is, in reality as it is, the great power of the cosmos that is happening as each one of us, as each form, as each creature, as each star, you know, as each cloud, as each leaf is happening. You see, God is not a noun. God is not an object. God is a verb. The word is a verb. God is happening. Reality is happening as you and me. And these yogas that developed from a pre-doctrinal time before human beings made up this idea of the perfect person and the power structures based on it. You know, the promises of salvation cults, of a future God realized or a future enlightenment. Before that time, there was this shamanic activity of yoga that we now call yoga, which was each person's participation in life as it actually is. And that's what we teach, and that's what Krishnamacharya definitely brought forth in his 101 useful years that he lived. And he brought it through from, it had essentially disappeared. You know, it's called the Tantras, the period of the Tantras. So it's a great body of literature that could fill libraries, you know, of wisdom, literature, and lesser known cultures that flourished for 1,000 years from the 5th to the 14th century. This period of the Tantras, but after the 14th century, it disappeared and was replaced by, you know, orthodox power structure. And even yoga has been in those power structures. You know, Shivananda and all those swamis that came into the West, you know, they were in this male orthodoxy of the hoax of the perfect person, the master, you know, with these arbitrary yoga ideas, some of which that did come from the tantric period, but they used it in the social dynamic of disempowerment, where there's a perfect person and then there's the person trying to get perfect, and created the seeking that is in yoga. So the actual tantras disappeared. You know, through that tantric period, it was each person's direct intimacy with our own reality, with the great power of the cosmos that is the body, that is the mind arising as a function of the body. So Krishnamacharya was born into a great Vedanta family of scholars. And he was a scholar. He went into Varanasi for 11 years as a youth and studied all the darshanas, the philosophical systems of the ancient world, but there was yoga was missing. And he had this problem that his own guru lineage, Ramanuja of the 10th century, who was one of the second great Acharya, the first Shankaracharya, then Ramanuja Acharya, the great. But these people were like They were like Krishna. They were avatars. They were like Christ or a Buddha, you know. Ramanuja Acharya had said in the 10th century that there must be yoga, that the tantras were the necessary means of the two becoming one. Like the two are one. The opposites are in union as one. Left and right, above and below. You know, inhale, exhale, strength, receptivity, sun and moon, male, female, are one reality. But the mind creates a two-ness. The mind creates the object, the presumption of separation. So Ramanuja said that there must be yoga as the practical means for the two to be realized as one, Advait, not two, only one, like one reality, only God. No divisiveness. So Ramanuja had said in the 10th century, this, you know, sagely Krishna-like personality, there must be yoga. There must be the participation in the union of opposites, the male-female union that is all life on earth. That is all life. It is a tree. Like a tree has a strong ascending trunk, you know, strength, but this foliage is utterly soft and receptive. See, that's the form, the yin and yang of life. The Taoists had that same understanding that pure existingness is happening as opposites in union. So Ramanuja was saying that there must be this yoga and the union of opposites, or participation in the union of opposites, implying intimacy in the family life, of course, implying intimacy with all ordinary conditions of life. But by the time Krishnamacharya had got through his studies in the hub of the Vedic universities in Varanasi, he found there was no yoga in India or Tibet. There was nothing that he could rely upon. All there was, he called it the soft underbelly. You know, it was yoga as power structure. You know, yoga that had been taken over, usurped by that social dynamic of disempowerment. You know, the gurus as power figures, you know. And so he was a bit despairing because he couldn't find it. You know, he couldn't find yoga with the kind of reliable academic accuracy by which he had done all his studies as a scholar. But then he heard about his guru in Tibet, Rama Mohan Brahmachari. And after 11 years of study in Varanasi, he took off on foot. It took him 3.5 months to walk from Varanasi to Lake Manasarovar around Kailash, the sacred pilgrimage mountain. And there he found his guru. And he stayed there for 7.5 years and lived in the cave system with his guru and his family, his wife and daughters, and studied yoga, and then brought this yoga at the request of his guru down into South India, down to the palace of Mysore, where the king, the Maharaj, Krishnaraj Wadiyar IV, became his disciple and his patron. And Krishnamacharya began his public work there. And then we know what happened. You see, everything happened from that teaching and by the Maharaj, the support of the Maharaj. That's where Mr. Iyengar came from, and Patabi Joyce, his young boys. And he began his very sincere mission for the world. And that is to give the yoga, hatha yoga, the non-dual Tantra of direct intimacy with reality itself, through the union of tangible conditions with tangible conditions. You see, what had flourished from the 14th century onwards were the male cults of dissociated inwardness. You know, this idea of the witness position, you know, sort of manipulating the idea of awareness into sort of using awareness as some kind of liberating skill that's developed in the mind. And all it does is create dissociation. See, so these religious cults from the 14th century onwards created just more dissociation from reality, from male-female collaboration, from just as Europe did it in its own version through the church and so forth. And that's what happened in these.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. When you say yoga, just for the people that are listening to us that are maybe beginning with the yoga practice, when you are mentioning the part that Krishnamacharya was missing, this yoga part, you are not just referring the asana practice, you are referring other techniques related to the hatha yoga practice, right? I just want to make sure so everyone.
Yeah, we would say asana and pranayama and meditation as a seamless process, as an intimacy with life as it actually is. You know, capital R, reality, you know, the power of the cosmos that is each life. You know, the great power of the cosmos that is intelligence, that is beauty, that is intrinsic harmony, inherently connected, you see, to what is, to reality, where no manipulation of the body is required, no manipulation of the mind is required with this, you know, idea of meditation residing as awareness and so forth. These ideas are not required. The seeking is the problem, you see. The seeking implies that you don't have what you're seeking for. So the seeking is the problem. My teacher, U.G. Krishnamurti, used to say, you know, when you're looking for something, you're seeking something, you see, it means that you don't have what you're looking for. If you can't find your car keys, you see, you're looking for the car keys, it doesn't mean that you don't have them. You think you don't have them, and then you slap your pocket, and there they are. You had them all along, like that. So you see, the seeking is the problem. And we would say, so stop looking, start living. The looking is the problem. So what we want in life is to participate in life as it actually is. And that is what yoga is. And it has an asana part, the moving and breathing. And then it has a pranayama, which is a stationary pose, just whatever the pose is. It could be lying down or even on a chair or sitting, legs crossed, and stationary breathing. That the asana gives you that capability to do your pranayama. And the pranayama, asana and pranayama, together seamlessly makes the mind clear, because the mind automatically follows the breath and the mind gets linked to the whole body, and the whole body is the cosmos. See, the whole body is the intelligence. The whole body is the glory of the cosmos. So the mind gets linked to its source, to what it's for, is a communication mechanism of the whole body. And that is meditation. And it's a cultural fault to come up with ideas of meditation without the yogas of participation. It's more of that religious seeking that's been put in us. that created the power structures, that created civilization, that created war and famines and misery,
Mm.
And we've still got it today. We've still got it going on.
I didn't mean to stop you
No.
with your path towards yoga and reaching to Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, so please carry on.
Yeah, well, you see, I was a young guy, like everybody else who's got interested in yoga. I was, born in the suburbs, given dished up the Western suburban options of life, get an education, get a career, get successful, get some money, get a family, get a box and a car, and a cottage car and a kid and a career, be useful for the factories, be useful for the universities that are also factories, if you know what I mean. And so that's what I did until it dawned on me that there got to be something more than this. I was rather impressed as a 15-year-old that, the Beatles came along, and that wonderful explosion of consciousness that came from actually Black America. It actually came out of the pulse of Africa. And Elvis heard it and went, by the way, there's a wonderful movie come out of the life of Elvis. It's a tragedy. It's so sad and it's so wonderful too. So he fed this explosion of life back to the white radio in the US. And it made it was an explosion in our own human time, in our own time, modern time. And John Lennon heard that as a young boy and said, I want to be that. I want to do that. And they did it, you see, off it went. And I was like 15 in the suburbs. And I did go on for a bit. I went to university and I did this, did that, thinking about, just did what you were supposed to do. But then we heard the Beatles, you see. And the next thing they were going off, John Lennon and they were all interested in this idea of meditation. The Mahesh Yogi. They all met in Rishikesh, and Donovan was there, and great musicians. And so as just a young guy, I was hearing this, seeing it, and whoa, what's this? What it fed back to me, there's more to this life than what is the Western civilization and how it was forming. So off we went. At the same time, people like Baba Ram Das, Richard Alpert, and all those Das brothers, Shyam Das, a dear friend who died not so long ago, Krishna Das, Jai Tal, these wonderful young men. So many of them, beautiful people, and they went off to India to explore what this was and then brought it back to the West. Ram Das with his book, Be Here Now. You see, that was a mind blower, that we absorbed that and knew there was more to this life than this dark Europe and its world wars and so forth. And of course, we're now going through the terror to find out that it's still that power structure, that male orthodoxy, that ignorance is still in place. We've tried hard since the 60s, but it's still there. You see. So
what age were you more or less at that time?
Like 1920. I first went to India around that time, and stayed in India in my early 20s for some time and traveled all around the see, I was like, if the Beatles went to Rishikesh, I'm going too. And that was in the, I forget the years exactly, but that was kind of in the equation. And Ram Dass's book coming out, Be Here Now. So whoosh, up we went, dropped out of university, went, and see, I met many wonderful yogis, some famous, some not famous teachers, not famous teachers. And got completely confused because much of it is crazy, you know, they're just charlatans. In India, spirituality is just business, you know. A male orthodoxy in the main, doing the seeking methodologies, exploiting the gullibility of the people. See, it's hard to find anything that was useful. But I was very charmed by a lot of different things. It was then finding Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, who were real scholars, who were actually teaching yoga tradition, yoga technology, as I was saying before, that Krishnamacharya had brought down from Tibet into Mysore. It was based on the actual wisdom cultures of the Tantric period. And they were diligent in that scholarship and had merged it with their Vedanta culture and the Tantra that had become, Vedanta and Tantra becoming, you know, one Dharma from the 10th century onwards. That, you know, Krishnamacharya did this impossible, beautiful task of rescuing the yogas from obscurity. They've been pushed into isolation in Tibet. And there wasn't available in Tibet or India. And he brought it down into Mysore. And see, I was stumbling around as a young boy, you know, looking all over the place. So I spent like a year and a half before I met Krishnamacharya and Desikachar. But I felt very, yeah, I went to Tiruvannamalai, which was where Ramana Maharishi, where he lived in Arunachala, the sacred mountain. It was the Mount Kailash of South India. And he was there. Well, not when I got there. He died in 1951. But he was a great sage of modern times. And so I was there and living there, and Madras, or now Chennai, was only 3 hours away by car, and some of his students from Chennai, students of Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, would come down. And so I got to hear of Krishnamacharya, went and saw them, and I knew that they were holding something that was real. And they weren't doing the spiritual business out of it. See, Krishnamacharya turned his back on the Swamiism, you know, of being the know-it-all, you know, know-it-all Ananda. You know, he wasn't doing that. They were committed to the actual yoga learning, you know, from their own Vedanta tradition that goes right back to the 10th century. And this was a big deal. And, you know, I had some academic background in me. You know, I was a kind of, I had some learning capability in me from school days and university. So I could recognize it when I saw it. In those previous early seeking in India, I'd met a lot of very powerful yogis, but I didn't have the learning of how to actually respond to them. You know, the grace that comes from meeting a realizer, a reality realizer, a God realizer, was beautiful. It was still there, you know. as Europe was going through its dark, terrible wars of World War I and II, there were people like Ramana Maharishi, the Bhagavan Nityananda was there, Ananda Mai Ma was there, Neem Karoli Baba, the guru to Ram Das and all the Das brothers, Mahesh Das and Sham Das, beautiful Bhagavan Das. And, you know, Shirdi Sai Baba and Upasani Baba. These were extraordinary human phenomena of realization were there. They've all gone now. But what I found was that the teachings of the scholarship of yoga that came from Krishnamacharya was the practical means to respond to such realization in India. And of course, it's not confined to Indian God realization. It's as true for a Christian, for example. You know, the response to the spirit baptism of Christ, you know, the anointed one, the power of the cosmos, the one who is not obstructed in the body and mind from the power of the cosmos.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
no,
it's a way to respond to all of it. Yeah.
So what? Yeah, I'm just curious. So you found those teachings, and then you did. I just wonder, how did that happen? Was he in a school? Did you just walk in and it was like, okay, I'm not gonna move from here anymore? What sorts of teachings was he sharing? And yeah, how was to be studying with him and to be so close to someone that was reflecting that that knowledge of the experience of God?
A beautiful, beautiful and interesting question. Yeah, thank you so much. You know, so Krishnamacharya was forced away from Mysore because the political system changed. Suddenly, this collusion of the English rulers and the Maharajas ended, and so the Maharaj system ended. Krishnamacharya had been teaching the young men there for years and years. That's when Iyengar was there and Pattabhi Jois, sponsored by the king. One day he came and there was a lock on his own shala. He was locked out of his own teaching space, you see. Deeply sad. He had a big family and he had no income. So what was special about Krishnamacharya for me was that because he was such a pundit, he was a scholar, he could have accepted large salaries and leadership in religious institutions that he was offered, you see, in Orthodoxy. But his own commitment to, you might say, to truth, or, you know, real God, or useful human religion, you might say, or spirituality, he knew that yoga was required. He knew that there had to be this practical means to respond to the sacred text of this world, including Christianity and Islam and Judaism, all of it, the entire wisdom tradition of humanity. He knew that, you see, and he went through this very difficult period in his life where he moved from Mysore, where he had a very successful and comfortable teaching circumstance, and he went to Chennai, known as Madras in those days, and he taught in this humble way and in the traditional way, which is one-to-one teaching. He would say, we're not magicians. You can't teach yoga in groups, in classes. You must adapt yoga to the individual needs of each person and take into account who they are, respect them, you know. So yogis are not built on assembly lines. Yogis are one-off, you know. So he was teaching like that in Chennai when I met him. And then so was Desikachar, who by that time was his young student. So I learnt in that traditional way from them. And that is that you go and see your teacher and you spend some time in one-to-one learning. And all of our teachers in the heart of yoga, they do that. You see, they teach in local community, they teach small groups, nothing wrong with groups. You see, groups are good for, you know, a yoga education and learning. But when it comes to your own practice, you teach one-to-one. And there's something special when two people just meet. You know, you and me meeting, there's something special about that, you know. There's an ancient text there, when these things are shared, only 4 ears should be present. You know, there's some power in the meeting of one and the meeting of two.
Totally agree.
So that's how I learned. And so I'd go, you know, once or starting, first of all, twice a week, and then things went well. And so 3 or 4 times a week, just meeting, going back and back like that and learning.
And it was he asking you personal questions and addressing your asana practice and teaching you pranayama and teaching you also Vedanta and all of that, right? That's
And also he's very kind to me, Desikachar, and he would let me sit in on his own teachings with other people. So I'd observe him as a teacher. But what I say to my friends who study with us at the Heart of Yoga, just by being a student with your teacher, you learn how to teach. See, just by, that's how it is, very natural.
I'm just curious about something, because it is funny, isn't it, that most of the students, or at least the most famous students from Krishnamacharya were Pattabhi Jois and Iyengar, they actually started this type of yoga with big groups of people. So I just wonder what happened in between the teachings of Krishnamacharya, where he was trying to instigate these one-on-one teachings into, okay, guys, now you go and spread the word of yoga into the world, and it started to become more popular. I don't know if you have something to share about that.
It's really just a Western adaptation, you know. Let's face it, let's be honest. The culture of the world now, the West, that is now the whole world, it's a consumer culture. It's all based on commerce. It's all about selling something to somebody else. And it's all about trying to get something, consume it, you know, solve your problems through consumption, through purchasing something. And so that is the worldwide method of the West. The consumer culture is all there is now, you know, and even religion is part of that consumer culture, and yoga became part of that consumer culture. That's what happened. It became an industry where you have a product and you get bigger and bigger groups, you know, larger and larger classes and so forth. And that's what it is.
So there was not really the intention of spreading yoga massively. There was in the intention, I'm asking, so there was the intention of just bring yoga into the Western world, and initially was meant to be also with these one-on-one teachings, but all of a sudden it just became more popular because of the Westernization.
Yeah, well, you know, you have essentially a style, and everybody conforms to that style, that patterning. A duplication of the patterning is what has happened for yoga. And in that, the precise learnings from Krishnamacharya and his son Desikachar, and some other good students who stayed with him. One is A.G. Mohan, for example. Another is Srivatsa Ramaswamy. And there are a few, and there are many who studied with Desikachar And these are all good people. No, everybody's doing their best with the information they have at hand. There's no criticism, personal criticism of it. It's just the momentum of culture, the duplication of social patternings that is the world. The world is just patterning itself. So modern day yoga has become part of the world's patterning. So in that, the actual instruction that Krishnamacharya gathered from the Tantras through his guru, Rama Mohan Brahmacharya, it's been lost. It comes through a few thin lines here and there, And that is the precise information of how to adapt yoga to each and every individual, no matter who the person is. The yoga adapted to the body type, the age, and the health, and very importantly, the cultural background of each person, with respect to each person, who they are. So then they have actual yoga. What is actual yoga? It is each person's direct intimacy with life as it actually is. Not a seeking for some future change of state.
How to distinguish as a teacher or as a person on service to others, how to distinguish when we are accepting the person as it is, and when we are also including the conditionings that this person has, and probably this is part of the things that the person wants to get rid of in order to go into their own self.
Yeah, it's a matter of getting to know your student and respecting your student. And, paradoxically, not needing to change your student or convince them of a point of view or your point of view. There's no activity of trying to win them to your cult and your practice, the one teaching for all mankind kind of business, or the one person that's going to save the whole world, the one method that's going to save the whole world, the meditation that's going to, be the solution. It's a matter of caring for each person, respecting them, who they are, even with their limits that they might have. In other words, being kind to them, I might say, like loving them, even, to use that big word, to care, to nurture, and give them the yogas that are right for them, according to who they are. And it's mostly about respect and sensitivity, and not just one size fits all. Yogis aren't built in assembly lines. Each yogi is a one-off. Each person is utterly unique, and caring for the unique special person that everybody is, and giving them their practices, which is intimacy with life as it actually is, connection to reality as it actually is, and what is inherently the case. Each person is the cosmos. The body is the cosmos. It's not an instrument to seek for a change of state, nor is the mind an instrument.
I'm sure a lot of people with injuries might come to you, and when they hear you saying the body is the cosmos and the body is the instrument, for those people that have an injury and they struggle in their asana practice, I guess the approach is the same when it comes to that. What do you think what do they receive? What do they learn from their own bodies when the body is injured? From that perspective, Mark?
Well, what we say is leave the body alone. give it a chance for its intrinsic power and its intrinsic intelligence to function. And life looks after all imbalance, all injury. You know, the life can look after. Life is a nurturing force, and it's taking care of its own. You see, it's inherent to life. What we do in the case, you know, and I have to, a little side point, that the way that yoga has been taught as male muscular effort, you know, the stranglehold of thought, the head imposed on the body, doing all kinds of stuff in the body as a male muscular effort, causes all kinds of injury. It sometimes sudden injury. It's like a hidden secret of yoga, of the yoga industry. It's causing injury in the joints, in the soft tissue, and the tendons and ligaments, you know, and the tissue that holds the muscularity in place. But it also creates an injury, a progressive injury in the nervous system. It creates a nervous disorder, you know, like working on yourself like this. And this hoax that's been put on humanity of a future salvation, a future enlightenment, you know. That thing of like, do your yoga and all is coming. No, all has already come. The all is in all. You know, the great power of the cosmos is all. You know, there's no need for imposition of seeking on the body. So, you know, leave the body alone. Yeah, leave the body alone. Let its own intelligence and power function. Don't cause an injury psychologically, you know, with addictive mental patterning or addictive stimulation on the body, like drug taking, you know. Just trying to feel better through this effort that comes through the orthodox mind, you know, in yoga and religion and so forth. But the actual means is to move and breathe as the whole body, where the inhale is in union with the exhale, the inhale being receptivity, like the softness of the branches above, you know, receiving, nurturing, receiving light, and the strength of the body base, receiving light, you know, strength receiving, hatha yoga. And that's what asana is. It's whole body breathing, foot to crown. We say the breathing heart, foot to crown. This is what asana is. Of the exhale, strength ascending, inhale, receptivity descending, in that we can attribute the male-female collaboration, which is the nurturing force of all life, which is motherhood, fatherhood, that which is all flowers, all trees, all creatures, you see, male, female, whether it's a socially recognized male body or a socially recognized female body, whatever the gender identification is or is not, we are all this, we are the opposites in union. And frankly, that must be practiced to go beyond or realize something that is the substance of our existence, the context, our, you know, reality itself, the truth of existingness. You know, before the thought came along, the stranglehold of thought with all its point of view and all its patterning, you know, one point of view in opposition to another point of view, you know, the mass patterning of points of view, all dissociated from what reality actually is. That's what our human struggle is right now. You know, it's come to a very exaggerated point in our modern time, where it's so exaggerated we can see it now and change it.
What was the point for you of not return? That moment where you felt this, oh, I get it. So was it by practicing asana, just integrating the breath into the movement, or the movement into the breath? And was it by listening to one of your teachers? And when was that moment that you had this, wow? The first one?
No, I think it's a progressive thing. It's progressive and it's sudden. Well, I can remember being, on the rooftop in Madras, and, after the first lesson, and being given my whole body breathing, inhale, exhale as the asana itself, the breathing heart, we say. And then looking at the moon and going, oh my God, So one of my lines, statement is you are not the person looking for reality. You are reality. The person that looks for reality, looks for God, it's just thought. It's just dissociated thought. Sometimes they call it the ego. But the ego is not a thing. It's not an object. It's not an identity. There's really no such thing. It's just confused brainwaves in the head. There's no such thing as the person looking for truth, the person looking for reality. There is reality, and that's all. So you're not the person looking for reality. You are reality itself.
Interrupted by thought sometimes.
Well, it's to be understood, you see, the whole dilemma that's been put on us. Like for, a simple example, it's a very popular idea that's come from Vedanta, particularly through Ramana. No doubt Ramana was the real deal. He was a very beautiful human. Something happened to him at the age of 17, and he went into a place of permanent peace from the age of 17 for the rest of his life. His method that he gave his devotees was to follow the I thought. And he had a meditation called it was who am I? You ask that question, who am I? Until you come to the source of I. What I like to point out is that asking that question, who am I? Every time you ask it, you are creating the idea of the person seeking for the source of I. So you're creating the persona of the seeker. And this just goes on and on and on. And all religion is that, all yoga is that. The seeking idea of the identity that seeks. It's all a mass dissociation from reality itself. So you are not the person looking for reality, you are reality. And when that is seen, stop looking, start living.
I might be wrong, but I believe that every student brings up something new of a previous teacher. What would you say is Desikachar's seed from the teachings from Krishnamacharya? What was his gift into the world from Desikachar?
Another beautiful question. Thank you so much. Without Desikachar, we would have had no clue what Krishnamacharya was teaching. We'd have no clue of Vedanta, no clue of the tantras of how Vedanta and yoga merged as one dharma, and no clue of the detail of how to adapt yoga to the individual needs of each person and culture. And Desikachar was a bright young man who at the age of 27 turned his back on a very successful engineering career. He was working for a German engineering company and he loved his job. He had an experience of seeing a New Zealand woman who was a diplomat's wife in Madras, and she had a severe illness, and Krishnamacharya had cured her. And he saw this white woman give a huge hug, run across the front yard of Krishnamacharya's house and give him a big hug and thank him so much. And the young Desikachar, 27 years old, was very curious, like, what was that? What just happened there? And then he heard about the healing. And he said from that point onwards, he realized that his father held something that was very important. That was more important than his engineering career. And he turned his full focus from that point on to learning from his father. And he brought, and Desikachar, who was Western educated, English speaking, understood the Western sciences. And he brought the full weight of that learning of his early education to the learning of yoga and delivered it to us, which is why I did his book, The Heart of Yoga, because I went to the US in the early, not like 1992, and saw the only yoga that was going on. They were calling this mediocre gymnastics, this Iyengar activity in the studios, and they were calling it yoga. And I came back to Desikachar and I said, look, it doesn't bear any resemblance to what your father actually taught. And the West is not receiving anything from your father. And he said, please, if you can do something about it, do something about it. And I said, well, we must have at least a book. So we created a book called The Heart of Yoga, Developing a Personal Practice. So that's what Desikachar brought into the world. He said, I'm happy to be the postman of my father and to deliver my father's teaching. So he was very dutiful to that. Just as Krishnamacharya said, I only teach what my teacher taught me, nothing more, nothing less. It's a beautiful statement. And Desikachar was the same. I only teach what my father taught me. But he did bring it into English language and also to the Western thought structure. He began to understand. Another very special thing that happened to Desikachar is that he went to the West. He went to Zarnen, where the Krishnamurti, J.Krishnamurti, was teaching in Switzerland. And there's a big story there. Mr. Iyengar had gone there in 1954 at the guest of Yehudi Menuhin. Mr. Iyengar had a lot of business prowess and gymnastic flair and bravado. Yehudi Menuhin started doing headstand on stage. It's like his daughter was very embarrassed and disowned him for a while, apparently. Yeah. But the Vanda Scaravelli, the great teacher from Italy, she brought Mr. Iyengar to the Krishnamurti's meetings. And so J. Krishnamurti became very interested in yoga at that point. But however, what he learned from Mr. Iyengar was too severe for his elderly body and some sort of elderly health problems that he was developing. So when he went next time to Madras, to Adyar, which was the world headquarters of Theosophy, he knew of Krishnamacharya, and he visited him and said, look, will you teach me yoga? I'm fascinated in this yoga. And so Krishnamacharya softened his practice considerably and gave him something useful about, just moving and breathing as the whole body. And then he said, I appoint my son to teach you. So Desikachar started going to Zanan every year to teach Krishnamurti. And that's an interesting story. Krishnamurti was an elder man and famous, world famous then. And Desikachar was really just a young man. And Desikachar said that meeting and knowing Krishnamurti made him a better student of yoga and a better student of his father, because Krishnamurti was such a good student, always turning up on time, a great respect for the subject and a great respect for the teacher. And this was kind of an eye to Desikachar. And furthermore, Krishnamurti told Desikachar, get as much from your father as you can, because this man carries the ancient depth of spiritual wisdom for humanity, and please get it from your father. And from that point on, Desikachar just, he told me he became very focused from that time onward, a little reluctant to begin with, giving up his flash Western engineering job in Korea. He started a little slowly, but after the Krishnamurti meetings, and he said by going with Krishnamurti to the West, he began to understand the Western mind. He said Krishnamurti taught him everything about the West. He said, he taught me how to eat with a knife and fork, So this meeting with Krishnamurti, both Krishnamurtis, J and then UG, the Desikachar and UG Krishnamurti became very good friends. And that was that collaboration really clarified yoga for the West and for the world, really for the rest of time. They brought great clarity to it, especially UG Krishnamurti, who was acknowledged in India as a Jiva Mukti, that he was a realizer, and he brought this clarity to Desikachar to make sure that yoga didn't have a trace of seeking to it, that it was only participation in life as it actually is, only participation in the pranas, in the energy that is life, not a manipulation of the pranas, not a manipulation of the body or the mind, but participation in the natural intelligence of life itself and the natural movement of life itself. And the spiraling of the flowering of the pranas in each embodiment, each person. The yoga is simply that participation, not the seeking towards a future state where the misery is, where the denial of life is there, and that seeking. And so the Krishnamurtis, particularly Yuji, brought a lot of clarity to make sure that yoga was actually yoga.
It's interesting because in my own experience, our traditional tantric ashrams, the ones that still hold this principle of respecting the body as it is and respecting the individual as it is, and just to raise the volume of what a person is instead of diminishing this volume and changing the person. I wonder what so the heart of yoga, the school that you founded, I guess is a continuation of that maintenance of the teachings of Krishnamacharya. Is that correct?
Certainly, yeah. As it was interpreted and translated, literally translated, by Desikachar, who was deeply influenced by Jiddu Krishnamurti and Yuji Krishnamurti, who were extraordinary gentlemen of our own time, our own world. And as I said, Yuji held Krishnamacharya to the fire of his own teaching, and that is that yoga must be adapted to each individual, each utterly unique individual, not to change that individual, but to allow each individual to participate in the intrinsic intelligence that is each person's life.
And how is the teachings of your school nowadays? What are you sharing? What type of courses are you doing? Tell us a little bit about what is the content that people are going to experience when they enroll to any of the courses that you share.
Thanks for asking. So, when the pandemic thing happened, I couldn't move around anymore. And so we began a school online. And so many of my friends who I knew around the world, from Bali and the US and Europe and China and Japan, and Australia, New Zealand, Africa, we gathered on Zoom. But then other people came. And first of all, the pandemic was a little disappointing, of course. But then a small silver lining from that is that we all started gathering every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. So now we have people from 21 countries who gather in very lovely groups. And I say, at the speed of light through glass, light through glass, the light through glass, and heart to heart, And my friend was saying to me, my God, this has not happened before, ever. In the spiritual history of humanity, is worldwide gatherings where people get to be friends, to know each other really well, by meeting every week and sharing their common experience and being in support of each other, being in celebration of each other, being fascinated to meet yogis from very, very different cultures, but all meeting together. And so that's what we do. We run these we have an online course called the Immersion into the Heart of Yoga Personal Practice. It's a course that people can do in their own time and get all the principles there. And another one, Yoga for a Better World, which is for people who are, trying to make change into this world and using yoga as their baseline for their own personal health and survival, so we can be effective workers in this world. And then we have our Heart of Yoga studio, where we have these live gatherings, and we have a teacher training course that people can do online in their own time, with hours and hours of videos and classes that they do. And then we have live teacher training, where we meet once a month, and we have over 6 months, and we do all that stuff. And it's nice because, when I put Desikachar's book out, I brought it back from New York. It was published by Inner Traditions there, and I brought it back as a kind of a gift for him. And I said, this must go mainstream. We have to get this to the public. Your father's teaching isn't there. And Desikachar loved that word, mainstream. He liked it. Mainstream. And what I like about what's happening now is that through Zoom and online activity, we are getting into the mainstream. And, you know, like people are learning to be teachers, and it's so amazing for people to be in their own homes, not to have to go anywhere, to be with each other, and to be in their life, in their ordinary life, in their ordinary circumstance, in their own town, in their own life with all its difficulties, in their own community with all its difficulties, and learn yoga without having to go anywhere. And of course, actually practice it in their own home and not have to go to a studio or anything like that, or go to Bali or go to Paradise Island or something, you know, but it's just very ordinary in their own natural circumstance, in their own natural lifestyle. It's a beautiful thing. But to meet each other and talk and learn, and then teach it mainstream. Like we have people who've had the Hatha Yoga training, and now they're teaching in the schools. They're teaching by Zoom. One friend, Andrew Raba, he started just a year ago. He's a high school teacher, and they heard that he taught yoga, and the teachers and the students were, of course, were having a hard time at school in the pandemic. And now he's teaching 500 high school teachers by Zoom, you know, mainstream. And other people going into the gangs and the people struggling in poverty and so forth, and just giving them their breath. And it's so good to see this happening now, going mainstream. Not fanatic gymnastics, not fanatical mental gymnastics, you know, trying to meditate and all that stuff, but just intimacy with life as it actually is. And it's really quite easy. Anybody can do it, but it's not known about.
Are you planning to do anything presential this year, or maybe next year?
Well, we're sneaking out now from our home in Fiji, where, you know, the planes are flying a little bit. And so we're going to explore a few live retreats in Europe and US and Bali and different places. But, you know, we'll take our time with that.
We will share information with this video about all of the online and offline courses that you're sharing. Last thing I would love to talk with you, Mark, is about the concept of intimacy, individually, and also in romantic and friendship and family relationships.
Yeah,
how
beautiful.
Much intimate we are.
Yeah, well, you know, I use the word intimacy, that yoga itself is intimacy. Yoga is connection, the inherent connection to life as it actually is. You know, like, we are already intimate with life because we are life. We are so close to life. We are intimate with life. You know, we're as close to life as our own breath is close to our own body. You know? So I published a book not just a year ago, so it's called God and Sex. Now we get both. And I see this as the solution of our dreadful time. See, I said that even our legal and our financial systems are based on the original religious principle that God is other, that you get to God. See, you get created the consumer culture. Even God is a part of consumer culture. Or you get enlightened, you become enlightened. There's no such thing. So those cultures denied life, denied embodiment, as, you know, the idea of God as some abstract other that you get to through whatever the power structure is offering and the arbitrary methods of the power structure. So yoga is to bring that home and to understand that the body itself is the cosmos, and to link to the body, to link to our breath and the immediate intimacy which we already have. And then seeking stops. And that dichotomy of trying to get somewhere, you know, all the dichotomies of good or bad, happy or unhappy, good and evil, you know, God or not God, spiritual or not spiritual, they all just come to an end. They vanish. You know, the whole idea of point of view, the mind, the stranglehold of thought, just it's not there anymore. To be with your breath. And I say the body loves its breath. To be with your breath is the practical means that cuts through all those dichotomies that our social structures have been built upon. All this seeking in the body to try to get somewhere, seeking in the mind, trying to get somewhere, as if we are not always already the power of the cosmos, which we actually are, you know, factually is the case. Obviously the case, but ignored by the seeking mind of society. So when I say...
Yeah, sorry, when people try to apply these, I think what I see, some people can get to the mastery of these principles individually, but when it comes to relationship, in intimate relationship or romantic relationships, it seems that there is like a level 2, right, of integration of these principles. How, any tip to help people that are struggling into applying these principles when in relationships with others?
Well, let's face it, the whole world is struggling with that. The human species is dissociated from our own reality. We don't even, you know, notice our own state, the natural state, that which is cosmos is functioning in a perfect harmony. You know, the body is already in a harmony with the total cosmos, which is its context. You know, the body and air, for example, are in a perfect biochemical energy relationship, the body and air, the body and light, you know, male, female collaboration of opposites is already our condition. You know, the body in the green realm, the plant kingdom, the body and stars like this. So, you know, the method is that the body loves its breath. So we, you know, inhale, exhale. And then this takes from us this religious philosophy that our civilization is built upon. It just vanishes in the immediate connectedness to what life actually is. I say the body loves its breath. It's a literal love relationship. And the exhale loves the inhale, and the inhale loves the exhale. As I said before, it is ascending and descending flow of life. Exhale, strength, ascending, inhale, receptivity, descending. And this is what is happening. The crown, like an upward turned cup, you know, that without a lid, not a knot of thoughts with a lid on top. That's the head, you know, the male head that has been created by believing our thoughts are reality. It's like a locked box. In fact, the crown is open, receiving infinitely above down through the whole body to the soles of the feet. And then we have this upward movement, ascending. A religious culture has become obsessed with ascent only, getting out of the body. But, you know, God comes down, or the goddess comes down into the body, down to the soul. So that's a bit of, you know, religious language, but it's just true for everybody that once you find this whole body breathing process, which you can teach anybody in 20 minutes how to do this, then this whole body participation, the moving and breathing, it vanishes the thought structures that we otherwise are believing in, and our knot of thoughts. And it puts us into real connectedness to what's already true, that the body is the cosmos. And that particularly this union of the inhale with exhale is the union of strength with receptivity, the union of the male-female qualities that is intrinsic to all life on earth. Whatever the gender identification might be, whatever the sexual preference might be, we are all male-female. Every one of us, every creature, every flower, every tree, every fruit is male-female. Opposites in every atom, opposites in union, you see. So that's what we do. We participate in these qualities of the whole body. That is male-female, that is strength, that is utterly receptive. Utterly receptive through the soft crown, the brain core, down the front of the body to the soles of the feet, and invincibly strong, the strength of life itself, that is an eternal force that is ascending through this body through its lifetime.
For those ones that want to access those principles very easily, there is an application, a phone app that is called The Promise that I highly recommend. And you can just, by a very easy to put in practice, asana practice, you integrate those principles of intimacy of the breath and the body movement. And also, of course, another book that Mark has also translated in Spanish, which is The Promise, La Promesa. So highly recommend to read that, because actually it's like a guaranteed promise, right? 7 minutes a day of this practice can change your life forever.
That's so religion and yoga makes all kinds of promises. So used in religious language, the promised land and all that. So that's why I use it. And I say this is the promise that actually delivers. These are the pre-doctrinal yogas that were there before even doctrine was invented, and before humanity invented the idea of male domination and the destruction of the resources, the control of resources. Before that, there was only cooperation, the union of opposites, where one empowers the other in an eternal cooperation. One gives to the other, one receives the other. And I do, when we do these ancient yogas from the wisdom traditions that flourished for 1,000 years, even before that they flourished. But the specific 5th to the 14th century, this 1,000 years, it's impossible to imagine 1,000 years of satisfaction in cultural life, in human life. It's impossible to imagine, because after the 14th century, things started getting really bad and have continued to be dissociated from our actual reality. So if we would practice these wisdom physical practices that were there, that flourished for 1,000 years. And I think, we might be talking about certainly a solution for humanity, for the vast public. Yes, that's true. But even, while we each have to survive in this extremely difficult world, it's just for personal well-being and survival for ourselves and our family. I think these matters are essential to learn. I'm not offering like a solution, here's the solution, everybody. No, this is and the heart of yoga is not a yoga group we're not a yoga club or an institution or a cult. There's no leading personalities, no celebrity personalities, no knowers, you know. We're just people sharing a yoga education that happily this generous man, Krishnamacharya, brought through from his learning. And this is just a yoga education for anybody. And it's a wide open field that people can walk in and out of as they need to and get what they need for their life, for their yoga life, and for their intimacies with life and their intimacies with each other, including the union of opposites, whether it's same-sex or opposite-sex intimacy or any gender identification. See, when you engage, inhale, exhale, strength that is utterly receptive as your own life form, as your own embodiment, which is the natural state of the body, then that gets translated into actual relatedness with others, with another of your choice. So strength receiving, the giving and receiving of your own embodiment becomes the natural form of your life, intimate life with somebody else. And
yeah, definitely.
That's the key to your question. And that goes right back to 10th century Ramanuja. Said there must be the union of opposites. It's yoga that joins the two to become one. It's yoga that deals with the mind of dichotomy that is assuming separation. In the world today, we're assuming there is a separate self that seeks for God or enlightenment, or just seeks to feel better, the separate self, in a world full of everybody else doing the same thing, assuming a separate self. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as a separate object. Everything is happening as the total cosmos, you see. So that vanishes this idea of the separate self, the yogas, of participation in the given reality. And that's what Krishnamacharya brought through. And that's, like, this is the mainstream suggestion. But just anybody can do it. Learn it. This is what we called the Spanish book, La Promesa, Anybody can learn how to move and breathe. And thanks for mentioning that app. Is I Promise. There's two. The yoga promise, the one I like is I Promise.
Me too.
Yeah, because it's kind of a joke, see. I promise to do my yoga. There's a little 8-minute video there that anybody can follow and learn how to do it.
And the texts are beautiful. No, definitely the world is different when we assume that we are part of the same thing, and we are just, opposite of the same thing as when we take the world as a divided being. So definitely it makes a change. It makes a huge
change. And you see, I think the world of the separate self, all struggling with all other separate selves, that whole sort of bozo land of everybody struggling away there, that it's kind of dumb, but it's not going to change anytime soon. But each of us need to live in the world. I'm not suggesting dissociation from the world or some kind of false renunciation. There's nothing to renounce. And we're not talking about any dissociation, no personal inwardness away from the dreadful conditions of the world. But it's just each person's realization that they are indeed, in fact, the power of the cosmos, that the body is a pure intelligence, how it's functioning. The body is in an intrinsic harmony with its total context and substance, the natural world. We are utterly at one with air and light and water and green, all tangible conditions. And the intangible of this is our state. We are already that. And it says yoga is simply to participate in what's already the case. And then go and change the world. then go and tell others about this fact of our human condition. And I think that's needed now for the world to come right. It's a world gone wrong for us to cooperate with Mother Nature's ecologies and stop this nonsense of point of view and conflict with each other. You know, one point of view reacting to another point of view, either, you know, in the dreadful vulgar terrorism that's going on right now in Europe and many other places on the planet. Or just at the local level of people being into totally unnecessary conflict with each other, just not enjoying their own reality. You know, it's time for us to, the suffering that's going on in the world will possibly lead us to make the changes that we need to make.
Hopefully.
Yeah, Krishnamacharya called it the dukkha, the restrictions on life. He said it's the unavoidable motive of practice that makes the change that we need to make, you know. I think we have it playing out on a mass level now. And he said a beautiful thing, everything is in yoga is sat, everything is the truth. And he'd say, thank God for my dukkha, my restriction, because it has moved me to practice. And now I know, my God, now I know reality through actual practice. So this could be happening on a mass scale now.
Thanks for this message of responsibility for everyone. I hope it settles in people's hearts. And thank you so much, Mark, for, I know you don't like the word master, but for being this example of mastery, of humbleness and generosity. I know it's late for you and on the other side of the world. And thank you so much for making the time to share not only your teachings, but also the teachings of the amazing teachers that you had. I feel blessed to be somehow the transmitter of this and to serve to others as well, to access these teachings, which are very valuable and that I think are very important because it brings us away from thinking that there is something wrong with us, and it brings us into a place of peace, a more loving place of peace within ourselves and therefore with others. So thank you so much, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a profound peace in the body. It's already there. It's what is. It's life as it actually is. And thank you so much, because isn't it amazing? We are sitting in the opposite ends of Mother Earth, having this immediacy of conversation. And, you know, in the obvious one reality, the unity condition that is the globe, you there, me here, at the other ends of the earth, and here we are. And this has not happened like this before, where we can share this into the mainstream all over the world. So we'll keep doing this. Yeah, it's a good thing. Definitely. Yeah. and thank you for sharing with me. Thank you so much. So for everyone watching, we will share some links connected to this video, so you can access what Mark shares online and hopefully very soon also offline. Thank you so much, Mark. See you later. heartofyoga.com is where people go. Yeah, we will share the link. Thank you. Bye.